Good morning and welcome to another edition of Talking NW Synod podcast. I'm Lawrence Heath-Moore, your host, and this morning I'm talking to Wendy Higson and Izzy from Clitheroe United Reformed Church. We're discussing Clitheroe's extraordinary achievement of being awarded their gold eco-church status from A Rocha. Wendy, Izzy, welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Good to have you. Now, you're both part of the eco group at Clitheroe, a group of 10. Yeah. But interestingly, one of you has been a member for 32 years. Which of you is that one?
That's me, Wendy.
Wendy, welcome. And Izzy, you've been a member since when?
About July 2021.
2021. So you landed in the middle of this journey that Clitheroe's on.
Yes. Yeah. Accidentally got involved. Wendy said, would you like to come down and look at our garden? And I did. So then came up with the idea of getting a water butt to make it easier to water the wildlife in an environmentally friendly way. And from that joined the group and haven't looked back since.
That's great. It's a great story. So you're joining the church was very much connected with the whole eco-church journey that the Clitheroe's been on.
Yes, and very much didn't look back from Clitheroe because I came from another church that had recently closed and thought I'd try several churches, but came to Clitheroe and it was such a warm welcome and seemed to be such an outward-looking church. It really attracted me. I felt like I'd come home.
So Clitheroe, you received your Gold Award on the 14th of June this year, so just last month.
Yes, and it was quite a significant day. Izzy and I were the contacts for the award, and we both had a phone call on the 14th of June, which happens to be both our birthdays, so it was quite a nice birthday present.
Oh my goodness, what an extraordinary coincidence. Wendy, the journey for Eco Church started before there was even such a thing as an Eco Church Award by Rocha. Isn't that so?
That's true. We started, supported by our project group at church, around 2007, when after a quinquennial we realised that there were a lot of changes needed to be made. So that was a journey of replacing the roof, insulation, that sort of thing. So and also making changes to the church to make it a street level church, which meant that we could use our worship area for other events that involve the community where people could come straight off the street and into our church rather than using our room downstairs below the worship area that wasn't always as easily accessible or visible. So that's when we started the journey. Since then we've made a lot of changes like a disabled lift access, disabled loo, easy access into our church. But along the way, we were in touch with Dalian Tenkate, who is our missional partnership mentor and also now our Green Apostle.
Yes.
And she suggested to us in 2019 that why didn't we think about going for an Eco Church Award? And we were a little bit daunted at first, but she encouraged us to fill out the survey and see how we got on. And said to us, I'm sure you'll be able to get bronze. You've done some changes to the church already. And actually we realised we were on track for silver, so that motivated us.
So it rose out of a quinquennial and
yes.
Things that you needed to do.
That's
but
correct.
It was connected with making the building fit for mission. You were looking outward at the community and saying, what kind of building do we need that's fit for purpose?
Absolutely, yes. So we were on the journey before Eco Church came into being. And then the suggestion from Dalian was the thing that made us look closely at Eco Church.
That became a motivator, it felt like. So looking through the survey and just thinking what you could do next. And what changes you could make, and actually there were some quite small things that you could do that everybody could do that would get you to the next stage.
And at this point, how much was this a project that was run by enthusiasts within the church, and to what extent was the whole church looking at the survey and going, oh yeah, we could do that?
I'd say everybody was involved, because one of the things that really heartened me was when we started to think of small things we could change, like maybe just having some water in the garden or what plants we needed. People just stepped forward, and it was infectious enthusiasm that people felt very much involved and part of it.
Yes, sowing seeds is really biblical, isn't it?
Yes, in fact, our sunflower growing competition, when we handed out the sunflower seeds to the congregation, they were in a little packet, and we put a little quote from the parable of the mustard seed on the packet so that people could see that they were planting seeds which grow into something that may feed the birds, which is what we intended.
I really love that, Wendy, because the thing about mustard seeds is about small changes that can have a profound effect.
Yes.
When you first thought about this journey, to what extent was the whole idea of the environment and eco-church, was that already connected to your faith, as it were?
Absolutely, and I'd say the influence of Michelle Germany, who was our previous minister, had very much involved those things in services. So it was very much embedded within the church and the congregation, and that just kind of carried on since.
So is it fair to say you saw it as a natural out of the gospel and of mission?
Definitely, and I think it's that quiet mission that we kind of noticed was happening, that it wasn't kind of showing it and shouting it in people's faces, but just seeing the little changes you can make to your lifestyle, about maybe what you do about recycling, what products and fair trade products we were using in cafes. Everybody was seeing that kind of quiet witness.
That's great. Wendy, at what point did you decide that as a church you're going for gold?
Well, that was after we'd got the Silver Award, which was in May 2020, which was during lockdown, so we'd had to have meetings on Zoom to finalise that. After that, we felt that what changes could we make? And then we suddenly had an idea that the wasteland at the side of church, which we didn't actually consider as land, could be a wildlife area, even though it was relatively inaccessible. And I think that gave us the impetus, as well as other changes related to maybe cleaning products and so on, that we could find out more about in the church, so that we were completely eco-friendly on our management of the church. We realised that there were other things we could do, and that's when we had a meeting that we entitled Going for Gold, and we then had more people joined our little group, and we were really quite keen to see what we could do to achieve a gold status. So that's around that time, not long after that, Izzy joined the church and has been a real asset to us in the group to take it further.
And I think originally that was using my gifts in kind of organisation to pull together some of the things that we were doing, because we found out actually we were doing an awful lot on the survey that would tick us for gold that we didn't realise. And just getting people involved in doing different things in the community cafe, thinking about justice as well, and using fair trade events. And there was definitely a ripple effect. So with the wasteland area that now was a wildlife garden, part of it, Tom's Table, a local restaurant, was using that to grow edible flowers and salads for his restaurant and herbs. So that led to kind of connections and conversations that you can have in kind of quiet witness as well.
Let's talk a moment about what Going for Gold involves. You've got 5 areas. Yeah. Now, if I've got them right, it's worship and teaching, buildings, land, community and global engagement, and lifestyle. That's really comprehensive. It's not just about changing the light bulbs, is it?
No, it's your whole life, how you live your life.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
And how you're connected more widely. The church has had a long history of being involved in trade justice, hasn't it?
Yes, yes.
Do you want to say something more about that?
Yeah, I've been a representative on the Clitheroe Fair Trade Town Group since about 2009, I think it was. And when it was difficult to find fair trade products, we had a stall after church every Sunday selling fair trade using tradecraft. And so the church has been involved in fair trade for quite some time. and linked with the town being a fair trade town. So we'd already embedded that within the church, and then it was just a natural progression from there. We have one of our members is part of the Ribble Valley Climate Action Network, and when we've been more recently over the last few years looking at climate change, we have been hosting events at our church to highlight climate need in the local community. And all these things have established that within our church. I think we are known as a church who supports climate justice and trade justice.
It sounds as though your church has been at the centre of the community life for quite a long time.
Absolutely. So there's regular first Saturday events that run a community cafe, which is once a month. We've been involved in have climate hustings where MPs came and could be questioned on their kind of stance on environmental issues. That was hosted at the church, and we linked in with another church where there was a climate summit which invited speakers, and also there was a stall where we could advertise about Eco Church and a Russia.
We were also involved in the COP26, which the walkers came through Clitheroe.
Right.
And we hosted the Coat of Hopes in the Shop of Hope in the centre of Clitheroe, which is I'm involved in, which is a fair trade, ethical, environmental shop. But also we hosted a lunch at the church for all the pilgrims who were walking along the route from the south up to Glasgow to the COP26 summit. So we've been involved in that as well.
And we've also involved Barry Schools, the only voluntary run URC school. So they were involved recently in a Christian Aid service where they were encouraged to grow peas at home. And we grew our own drought-resistant peas that are now visible from the front of the church.
Yes, when I visited Clitheroe a while ago, there was somebody, just a member of the public, sitting and reading a newspaper on the bench.
Yeah, pretty much
near the peas.
any day. Yes, any day there is. Yeah.
Do you have conversations about why is a church growing peas outside the building or something?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Wendy, you'd had a conversation.
Yes, I had a conversation with someone sitting on the bench about the peas and what they were all for, and also with the proprietor of Tom's Table. He grows pea shoots, which are very tasty things that he puts in his salads, and I had the conversation with him about Christian Aid and the pea challenge, the big pea challenge.
And Tom's Table, that's presumably the restaurant next door.
It is.
So, yeah, loads of community connections. Can you say something about worship and teaching? For some people, that might be a less obvious aspect of the environmental commitment of a church.
I think it's central to being an eco-church because it's very much, we're all stewards of the planet, and it's about how you live your lives and preaching on that, praying about that. And that being fundamental within your worship.
We've always included environmental issues and care of God's planet in our worship, and we've had a couple of cafe worship sessions where the congregation have been encouraged to talk about what they do in their lifestyles that protects the environment. So that's been on everyone's radar. We also have a Fair Trade Fortnight service where we talk about climate and fair trade, and at our harvest service we do that as well. We are currently all growing sunflowers, which will be judged in height in time for our harvest service, where there'll be a fair trade prize for the tallest sunflower, and the congregation will then be encouraged to use the seeds from their sunflower to feed the birds. And on our Thursday lunchtime services, all our members of our congregation who lead that, they include environmental issues in their worship as well.
And more recently, Dalian did a service around kind of the environment and creation, and we had a prayer table where people could go and offer prayers about justice and environmental issues.
That's really creative, and it's theologically important, isn't it? And biblically important. I mean, the whole biblical narrative from Genesis to Revelation is about, it's the story of creation. and its relationship to God, and yet that's been such a rare theme. Things like sermons and Bible studies and prayer and spirituality generally. Thinking about this journey that you've been on as a congregation, what about the lifestyle question? Have people's lifestyles changed?
Absolutely. So I think everybody has thought about maybe what energy company they're using, if they're using recycled paper. For instance, we've discovered that there's a different search engine that you can use called Ecosia, that if you use that for every 45 searches you'll get a tree planted, which does something better than using Google. People just thinking about what they recycle, what washing up liquid they're using. It's simple changes, but everybody's been involved, and people have said that they're been stunned and really heartened by if they make a suggestion. So somebody wanted us to use locally sourced bacon, and that was reared in a kind of fair way, and we sourced that, and by the next week we'd found a local farmer where we could buy that at a reasonable price, and we're using it for our community cafe. And they were really surprised because they thought, oh, that would be something that we couldn't change, yet we just did it in a week.
So it's get your environmentally friendly and animal friendly bacon butty at ours.
Absolutely, yeah, and we have that advertised on our poster.
Do you? Oh, that's wonderful. And what about the changes you made to your building as part of Going for Gold?
Already with the project group, we'd done roof replacement and insulation. They were just about ready to do the double glazing in the main worship area. And then since then, we have completed double glazing in the other areas of the church. And we've also had a beautiful stained glass window fitted by a local glassmaker, and that's triple glazed. We have changed completely to eco-friendly cleaning products, and our cleaner is completely on board with that. We developed the disused area as a wildlife garden, and realise that there are other small step-by-step changes that our congregation and us as a church can make that just makes things better.
Changing the light bulbs.
Changing the light bulbs to LED. Small steps we've realised we can do.
And just measuring what your carbon footprint is. I mean, that was a big task that we took on.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Wendy's the expert in it, but measuring and thinking about footfall and the number of cups of tea and bacon butties you might be serving at the cafe. And of course, you could have a brilliant carbon footprint if your doors were closed and you didn't have anybody in your church. You
weren't using energy.
Yeah, but obviously there's a balance with that we want to be an outward-looking church. So it's thinking about being sensible and still being able to do those things, but maybe thinking about then how you can offset that carbon by planting trees or doing other things.
Or ways to cut down the energy usage as well. One of our members is super with the boiler, which is a very old boiler, and that's the next thing that we're needing to change our heating to make it more efficient. But we have it serviced regularly, the timings of when the heating comes on has been adjusted, and actually we've saved quite a lot of electricity from the lights and how we use the building. We'll then obviously have more people coming to use our building, so we might have to plant more trees and just be more careful with our energy, but with a better heating system, then that's going to be good.
It's that irony, isn't it? Churches would be great places environmentally if it weren't for the fact that they're people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you're offsetting your carbon footprint actively, are you?
Where we are, a lot of people walk to church, so that's one thing that maybe we're saving carbon that way, rather than people driving. We're thinking about planting trees, so a number of the congregation are involved in different planting projects. Obviously we've got our wildlife area as well, so that's offsetting some of the carbon. Supporting other projects as well, where we can give money to make sure that carbon is offset.
And also the planting of 50 trees at Barrow School for the anniversary of the URC.
Do you encourage members to cycle to church, for example?
We're very limited on the cyclists, but they can fasten the bike to the church railings. So when they do arrive by bike, but I would say the majority walk. And then obviously it's got to be a lifestyle change. Do you want to try and have an electric vehicle or use public transport? Some of our congregation come by public transport.
Yeah.
That's all really encouraging. I want to ask you about Just Stop Oil and disruptive protest. Are you out gluing yourselves to the motorways as well as all the things that you're doing in church?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's, there's a place for different types of activism, isn't there? But personally, and maybe it's my quiet personality, but I think you make more impact by quiet kind of living your life and showing an example, and just maybe dropping pieces of information so that people can watch and choose to live their life that way, rather than maybe shouting it from the rooftops or sprinkling orange paint at Wimbledon. I wonder if that does make a difference. We need to get the urgency of the message out there, but you can potentially turn people off as much as you turn somebody on by those kind of activist events.
It's a vexed question I was asking because it's been so much in the news and it's a real debate, isn't it?
And I suppose having things like the climate hustings and having the climate summit and being involved in things like that are the way of doing that, so that you're sharing the information, you're advertising a different way of being, and just saying, come and see, what do you think?
Yes.
And I think that's had a big impact. Those particular events have had quite a big impact with getting the information out there. But I think it's also got to be a personal change as well, hasn't it? So it's a fine balance between getting the big messages out there so that people sit up and take notice, and you feeling able to do a little step-by-step approach yourself. And I think that's what we've noticed with the congregation.
Definitely. And with the survey as well, it's very much do it a step-by-step. You can first see it and feel totally overwhelmed that, we couldn't do any of this. But actually, when you sit down and start completing the Eco-Church survey, you'll find that you are doing some things. And even if you can't even get anywhere near bronze, it's a good motivator just to think, what are the next step to get us towards that? It is a journey.
Izzy and Wendy, congratulations on the award. Bless you both in all that you're doing. Thank you very much for coming and talking to me this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.